Hey everybody, it's Christina Louise. Welcome back to Parenting for a Peaceful Home. Today I'm going to introduce you to a really fun friend of mine. His name is Greg Kuhn. He's an author of the Why Quantum Physicists series on Amazon. And today he's going to help us understand what quantum physics has to say and how quantum physics can help us with a blended family. Or if you're in a situation where perhaps you're divorced or you're a single mom and you're considering stepping back into a marriage or a partnership, how quantum physicists, how the universe and the way it works and what we know about it today from a scientific basis can help you with your family dynamics. Welcome, Greg. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks. Yeah, I work really hard to do my best to ensure that the ... is good stuff. So thanks for giving me an opportunity to see if that is true once again. I enjoy talking with you.
Me too. So first of all, what is quantum physics?
Well, quantum physics is a not a new branch of science, but it's actually the what has become a second scientific revolution. You remember when we were in high school and we studied about Isaac Newton and Copernicus and people like that who created rules and laws like for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. Quantum physics is a new way of measuring and quantifying and analyzing the smallest parts of the universe and the biggest parts of the universe. And I guess the upside is it's hundreds and thousands of times more precise. That Newtonian physics, the science of the first scientific revolution, it works. It's still important. You know, we fly airplanes because of it. So it doesn't invalidate Newtonian physics, but the really weird, because what we've learned, quantum theory is really bizarre. It's actually more accurate than the other science. So it's pretty fun stuff I think, to study. It kind of takes you down rabbit holes, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Would you be interested in going down a rabbit hole today?
Absolutely. Let's show everybody what that means exactly.
All right. Well, I want to say this. First of all, quantum theory does not say that we can heal pain in blended families. Quantum theory does not say that what I'm about to share with you is how to create good relationships with stepchildren and with a partner within a blended family. But good goodness, there's a lot of blended families, and there's not a lot of material out there for blended families. So I kind of started out by telling you why you know the reasons why somebody might say, well, quantum physics and blended families. But let me say this. Here's what quantum theory does say. Quantum theory says that the observer and the observed are two perspectives of the same thing. Now, let that sink in for just a minute, because that is a really, intellectually, like, okay, sure. But think about that for a minute. What in the world? Here's something else to kind of illustrate that point a little more pragmatically. There's a British astrophysicist named Sir Martin Rees, and he says that the universe is here because we are here to observe it. So that kind of opens up a rabbit hole that we could jump down, right? I mean, so what you're observing is another perspective of yourself. That doesn't sound too far-fetched, probably, does it?
Not to me. Well, let's pretend it does sound a little far-fetched. So now what?
Well, I'll say this. It sounds great. I mean, that idea I think probably a lot of people watching and listening, they've encountered that idea and it's not alien to them. But what about when stuff starts screwing up? What about when stuff is painful? I mean, what the heck is going on? Why am all of a sudden this idea that I'm observing myself kind of goes out the window, or at least for me in my life, I've noticed that it goes out the window, and it's an awfully frustrating thing to hear. I'm in a blended family. I am in a blended family, so the potential here for resentment and misunderstanding and miscommunication is exponentially higher than in a traditional family unit.
Can we just stop there for a second? Because I want to point out for everybody watching, when we turn on television and we see what the messaging about blending, if there is any messaging about blended families, which are kind of few and far in between, but you do see movies and you see more and more shows that are coming out with these with personas who are people who are involved in blended families, but they make it seem like there's never really, I guess the point that I want to drive home here is that if you're dealing with conflict in your blended family, you're not alone. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Uh, my goodness, how many times do I get angry with people in my family, my partner, my biological children, my stepson? Uh, we live in such close proximity with each other. But when we've got that added wrinkle of, the bottom line is this, Christina, my partner and I, we want to be together. This is a wonderful thing, has been a wonderful thing for us. Our children, though, didn't ask for it. Our children didn't necessarily want it at all for a multitude of reasons. So that very fact alone, my goodness gracious, the challenge and the pain of a blended family is really pretty impossible to escape. But the flip side is, because we observe ourselves in everything we experience, it also offers us these amazing opportunities to reconcile and heal ourselves because of the pain. That pain can point us towards solutions. That pain, and not just to motivate us to heal, but to direct us where and how. So, I want to talk about how to do that in a blended family, and why. What I just talked about would be more the why. Why would we do that? Well, because there's a new paradigm that we get from quantum theory, and that paradigm is the separation between me and what I observe is largely an illusion. And what does that mean? It doesn't mean that I'm a magician who can just learn to, twirl my finger and make anything occur. No. Christina Louise is a distinct, entity, a time-space event that is occurring independently of my observation. But my observation of Christina creates my version of Christina that I experience in my universe. And nobody will ever be able to create Christina in my universe except me. It doesn't matter, it doesn't matter what you do to try to please me or to try to, make me like you or make me happy. I'm the only one who will ever create any version of Christina in my universe. So how can that help us? What kinds of things can we do? Do you mind doing a quick experiment?
I would love to.
All right. Picture your child, okay? And hold that child in your mind and privately spend 5 seconds feeling good about your child. It felt good, right? I mean, you were able to do that, okay? Now, hold your child in your mind and privately spend 5 seconds thinking about your child, except this time I want you to privately fulfill your full potential to feel great about your child. I mean, go over the top. Was it different?
Not much for
Not,
me.
not much. So if there is not much of a difference in that instance, you probably naturally go to that, or you're inclined to go to that place. But when you say not much, there's a little bit of a difference.
Yeah, there was a little bit of a difference.
Okay, then that's all we need is a little bit of a difference. And here's why that's a quantum experiment. That little bit of a difference between the first time and the second time, isn't it fair to say that you did that for you, right? Because I asked you to find that full potential. So you did that for Christina, right? So that's a good example of how our experiences in life work. We are constantly creating a version of everything we experience, and we're doing it for ourselves. There's no other recipient for that than ourselves, because that which we're observing is a reflection of us. It's always going to be a reflection of us. So what do we do when that reflection pisses us off really bad? What do we do? That's the map that I want to provide to step parents, step families. My free gift, if you haven't downloaded it yet, it's going to explain the map in detail. So we don't have time to explain the map in detail. But I will tell you this. There are two simple questions that you can ask yourself to get to that place where we can be more centered and more clear and find solutions when we are seeing reflections that make us so damn angry in our stepkids. And in my experience, sometimes a stepkid provokes anger like nothing else. You know what that means? If a stepkid provokes anger in me like nothing else, it means my stepson is jabbing my wounds. My stepson is hitting me where I'm most threatened, where I feel most vulnerable, and so that's I'm creating this painful version when that happens. So what do we do? What do we do? What's the map? And I'll just put this out there. The first thing is to answer this question. What is making me so angry? And that's a pretty familiar question when I say the answer to it has to do with what the heck is your stepchild doing that's making you so angry? It's pretty straightforward. What you do, though, in conjunction with answering that question is make sure that you process the anger. So if you're my stepchild, Christina, and you're being disrespectful to me and I get really angry, I privately answer that question. What is making me so angry? Christina is being an a-hole. And that is making me really angry. Now, continuing to keep it private, then I'll process that anger. I know what it is. It's anger. I'm going to process it. I'm going to give myself permission to feel it and combine that with some sort of physical activity. That's, in my experience, the best way to process it. And you're going to know it's processed when the anger's still there, but it's not calling the shots anymore. That's processed anger, right? Now, that's cool. That's probably familiar. The second question might not be so much. All right, here's the second question. Why did that make me so angry? And once again, these answers, they're private. they don't need to be broadcast. In fact, there's usually no reason to do it. Here's the trick with answering that second question. When I ask myself, why did that make me so angry? I'm looking for what in me was threatened. What about not what the other person's, not what the stepchild's behavior is, but what in me is so threatened? What is my wound? And I can tell you this, in my experience repeatedly takes me to either sadness or fear. Usually at the very bottom, there's fear. What am I sad about that this is poking? What am I afraid of that this is poking? It has nothing to do with what the child did. It's what in me is threatened. And then once I find that privately, I process it the same way as with the anger. What all of you who I'm looking at but can't see right now, what you're going to find when you do that is you're going to come to a place where solutions arise. And we'll just say this, not to be presumptuous, but I find solutions to that pain, the wound that's creating the anger, or creating, well, yeah, it led to the anger, but it's creating a sadness or fear. Solutions come in one of three varieties. One, I can do something different, okay? Two, I can understand something differently. Or three, both. So what do you think? I mean, is that pretty straightforward? If someone has a stepchild, if you will make a commitment to answering those two questions the same way that I've described, while keeping that process private so that it's not, you're not taking things out on either your stepchild or your partner, it works.
So the two questions again are, what am I, let's just assume it's an angry feeling. So what am I feeling so angry about?
Mm-hmm.
And we identify that. We look at the feeling, we process that feeling, make sure it's not calling the shots, and then privately ask ourselves, why did that make me so angry? So I'm hearing a lot of ownership. This is what I'm getting from this. We're owning our feelings. We're understanding that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, science today has proven that nothing is the way it is, because they're just disrespectful and that's just the way they are. No, they're showing up for you in that way because it's a match to something within you. And before we act to correct another human being, it's so important, in my opinion, to ask ourselves, what are we feeling? Why are we feeling this way? And then deal with that energy first before taking any action towards a child or anybody else. Because if we don't, then it's fire meeting fire, and now we're at war in our home. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And following this map, answering those questions, it doesn't guarantee anyone else's behavior. It doesn't guarantee that you will now perceive and understand a stepchild who is happy with your presence every day. What it does guarantee, however, is your best potential or opportunity to look at what's going on within you, reconcile that, and then interact with your stepchild from a place of clarity, from a place of compassion, from a place of empathy, which I don't think is any great mystery, almost always provides us with the greatest potential to create solutions that work, that where we're not in a mode where we're being punitive so that fear inside us is being satisfied. We're in a mode of, you said it, responsibility. It's self-responsibility. And it's not making oneself vulnerable and opening oneself up for attack, because oftentimes I find that healthy boundaries are one of the first things that come up as solutions. You know, healthy boundaries sometimes I think of them as, well, I'm going to put up some walls to protect me from you. Healthy boundaries also protect you from me. Because I'll run through, when I don't reconcile myself with fear or sadness, when I don't get to that place, I'm like a guy juggling steak knives. It might turn out just fine. I'm not the world's worst juggler, but the potential for something to go wrong and have it be not very good, it's a lot higher when I'm juggling steak knives instead of bean bags. And then heck, what if I stop juggling? With that focus, keeping focused on answering those two questions every time my experience with my stepchild and my partner becomes unpleasant, uncomfortable, infuriating, exacerbating, whatever, every time that's happening, there's a wound in me that's reflecting back to me. And it doesn't mean that my stepson isn't acting like an a-hole. It doesn't mean that my partner isn't, being protective of her stepson instead of being considerate to me, or whatever is going on. It doesn't mean that's not occurring. What it means is that I'm experiencing my wound reflected back to me. And when I reconcile that by answering those questions and staying open to the solutions that arise, yeah, sometimes I discover that I need to put a little distance. It might be temporary between me and my stepson or me and my wife. That's a wonderful thing to learn from a place of clarity, because I'm not doing it punitively. I'm doing it to keep us all safe. And sometimes I discover, you know what? It's kind of like, any other fear. I had this flash fear the other day. I hadn't reconciled our checkbook in 2 months. Like, I skipped a month. And we have been making some additions around the house. And I knew that we had the money, and my wife knew we had the money, but I hadn't done the reconciliation. And I realized I was asking myself, it was an argument between me and my partner. And I went through this process. And when I got to looking for the fear, I realized, I'm scared. I'm scared of money right now. And it occurred to me, well, you know what? This is something I can do something about. I can go and balance the checkbook and see what happens. It didn't guarantee me anything. It didn't open the doors of nirvana. But what I found when trying out that solution is, this was a fear about which I could do something, and it changed it. Other times I find like that, that really, the fear was plausible and logical, understandable, but it also wasn't completely necessary. That's where I find the freedom in a blended family is learning to discern the difference between the pain or the sadness or the fear that is seemingly natural and unavoidable, and then the sadness and the fear that is entirely unnecessary. It's magic. It creates magic. It opens up solutions. And anybody who's entering into a blended family or has been challenged by a blended family, try this. Download the free gift. Read through it, because I go into a little more detail. But it's still just as simple. What the heck is making me so angry? Process it. Then, why did that make me so angry? What in me made that such an infuriating thing to experience? And then process that. And from that state of clarity, then open your mind to solutions to what was occurring. You're going to be amazed. I know you've done this. I know you've done this in other areas of your life. It's just that there are certain areas where you haven't yet. So that's what I'm inviting you to do. In that blended family, in those moments where what's happening is the stepkid is being the biggest a-hole on the planet. And the partner is being the most non-supportive entity you can imagine. that's the time to ask these two questions. Wait and see what you discover.
Well, I want to encourage everybody to take Greg up on this challenge and definitely download his free gift, which is just below this video. Greg, before we sign off for today, is there anything else that you want to add?
Only that any version of me that you allowed yourself to create or chose to create that is helpful, beneficial, valuable, I really appreciate it. That's your decision. That's your making. And that's a gift that you've bestowed upon me. You have created a version of me that enlivens and fulfills me. And I can't repay you for that. So thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you all for watching and participating, for showing up for yourself and your family. God bless you, and I'll see you tomorrow with another video. Bye for now.